I'm gonna share my screen now and let's just start. So my name is Zuzanna Rogatty. I am a designer and I come from Poland, which is here. And Poland is known from our pierogi, which you may be familiar with. And after spending 27 years in Poland, I moved to New York. I work for a New York-based design studio Collins, but I'm currently based in Hawaii in Honolulu. So when Hank invited me to run the presentation for you, he reminded me that I'm gonna talk to students. So I thought it may be worth to share with you the background story of my journey and just show you how I came to the point where I'm at currently and how my education and self-education looked like. So I remember when we met firstly with Hank and Pipa, and the first question which they asked me was if I always knew who I wanted to become in the future. And I feel I was very lucky to always know who I wanted to become. And since I was 6 years old, I knew I wanted to be as some type of an artist. So I was supported by my family, who is quite artistic. And a fun fact is that my mom is a graphic designer, and so I always followed my dad's words, who repeated to me and my brother that if I find my passion in my life, I won't ever have to work in a job which I hated, or I won't ever feel like I have a job. I will just do my passion. So the natural step of um, of my education was to go to an art school. I went to School of Fine Arts where I spent 6 years, and I went there when I was 12 years old, and I graduated when I was 18. And I spent 6 years on painting, on drawing, on making sculptures, on studying history of art, screen printmaking, and also developing my photos in a photo lab. Like you name it, I was prepared for an art craft, and I was prepared to become an artist in the future. So the other natural step after 6 years in the school was going to University of Arts, where I spent 5 years. And again, I spent, in total, I spent 11 years, so 1/3 of my life on drawing and painting. But besides that, I obviously touched on all of the types of graphic design. So I also learned the packaging design, branding, infographics, interface design. And that was the moment when I got interested in typography in my type classes. But the class which I think influenced me the most was my poster design class. And we just talked about that with Hank 5 minutes ago, but you may be familiar with the Polish School of Poster movements, which happened in between 40s and 80s in Poland. And the leader of that movement was Henryk Tomaszewski. And so Polish posters got recognition thanks to their very simple form and thanks to their smart ideas hidden behind the concepts. And so we started to win awards around the world in different poster design competitions. And so, as I told you, the idea was because of the idea, they got recognized. And the reason for that was that we were under oppression in Poland. So mm, in between 40s and 80s, we were firstly, there was the Second War, so we were under German oppression, and then straight from the war, we went to being a communistic country under and being a part of the Soviet Union. So because of that, we had a censorship, and we couldn't say, we couldn't comment anything like freely. There was no freedom of speech in general. So everything, anytime when designers wanted to comment on the situation, they had to hide the message under a smart idea, under a smart composition. And a big part of that movement was also the movie poster design. And so whenever there was a movie screened in Poland, which came from the West, from Hollywood, the Polish designers had to make their own Polish version of the poster, which very often was actually better than the original one, because the Western poster was just not allowed to be promoted. So here you are looking at the Alien movie poster, for example. That's the Pink Panther. Harrison Ford in the I forgot the name of the movie, but whatever, Indiana Jones. And so you can see here that that's apocalypse times, and so you can see here that they have that beautiful painting quality, and it's because that the fact that many of the poster designers were actually professional painters, and so the poster was the only medium where they were able to express themselves, because the art galleries were shut down in those times, because the high culture was too exclusive, and it was not a proper culture for masses. So that's another Star Wars movie poster, which I actually have a printout back in Poland of a Hitchcock movie. So you can see here that some of the posters were super graphic and very simple in their form, and other ones were full of sense of humor, which was actually another very significant element of the poster, of the Polish School of Poster, and my favorite one, I think, so far. So and the other part of the poster design was that also the country was very poor back then, so people had to make everything by their hands. So thanks to that, all of the lettering, all of the typography was handmade, and it was also very common for that movement. And one of my favorite designers from those times is Waldemar Świeży. So now we are looking at the Muppets poster made by him. And what I love about his style is being the ability to make something so expressive and full of, energy and movement and musicality by using so limited tools and just a few strokes and a few colors. And now you're looking at his auto-portrait. And so Waldemar Świeży was a professor of my professor at University of Arts. So I've learned from his student, and I went to his poster class at my college. And that was one of the most valuable lessons which I got during my education at the college. And so he taught me the way of design thinking, and also the way how to cope with just being a designer, and how to come up with ideas. So the main rule of that class was that we had to come up with plenty of ideas, as many as possible, and the final outcome didn't matter at all. It was all about the process and all about the concept. So if we always had to bring all of our sketches just made on paper, and the Illustrator, the digital files were not allowed in in the most of the part of the process. And so I remember one of the most important lessons which I got was when I came to review my idea, and I showed my poster on a screen, and I spent like a few hours of honing the details of my poster. And they looked at the poster together with his assistant. They looked at the poster, they closed the screen, they turned away, they looked at me, and they said, "We know that you can make it beautifully, but now we want you to make it ugly." And so it pushed me to explore, to experiment, and to never settle down on obvious and trivial ideas. And that was their mantra as well. So one time Grzegorz Marszałek and his assistant, Marcin Markowski, they forced us to prepare, to submit a poster for a poster design competition. So it was a super tight schedule. Like we had one night to prepare the poster, but that was the idea, that it was just limited, and the idea had to be clever, simple. And so I submitted the poster. It was a festival of art and music, and I won the competition. And so I'm gonna touch on that later, but just saying it right now. So during my education at University of Arts, after my third grade, I spent my summer vacation doing an internship, which I got in one of the best web design studios in Warsaw. And so during my third grade, I got interested in web design, in interface design, because I saw a niche there. So I've learned how to code, and I just submitted my portfolio and to the most experimental and successful studio. And I went there for 3 months, and I've learned there that web design, it's not what I want to do in my life. So after that, after spending the fourth year at my university, I went to another summer internship, and I got hired full time. So basically, my fifth grade, I spent studying full time in one city, and I was working full time at design studio in another city at once. So at the design studio, which back then, at that moment, they were one of the best design studios as well. And so I've learned everything about branding, about packaging design, which I got to, I've got to learn how to produce packaging. I learned how to design wayfinding. So we ended up going to construction sites. I even designed a collection of skis. And so after 4 years, in Poland, I was in a moment when I was a senior designer at a studio, and I had experience in a freelance. So I came up with an idea that, okay, I want to experience more, and I want to learn from the icons of design. So I applied to Pentagram in New York, and I wrote 3 emails, nobody responded to me. And so after 6 months of trying to get an internship actually I wanted to have an internship on Paula Scher's team. I didn't get that. And so once I came up with an idea that maybe it's worth to talk with the partner of the studio in person. So there was, I just saw that there was a design conference in Barcelona, where Luke Heyman had a lecture. So I flew to Barcelona, I went to him, I talked to him, and I got an internship with him for 4 months. After that, I got hired by Natasha Jen, and I ended up staying at Pentagram for a year. And I met Paul Asher, I met Michael Beirut, who, fun fact, he has Polish roots. So after that, I finally landed at the happy family of Collins studio, in which I honestly feel that I'm back at the university, because for me, it's the place where the culture meets the commercial design industry. So anytime we do a research, we just source our inspiration, we always come back to the history and to the history of culture, of art, and the history in general. So I honestly feel like I'm just at Hogwarts School. And so I showed you the whole journey of education, and it's it's just a very traditional way to go from from an art student, I went to the art school, I had an internship, and then I got the full-time position at the design studio. And it's like a classic way of a career. But what matters the most in my design experience, and what I got influenced by the most, was everything what I did around my daily responsibilities. So I honestly didn't sleep much in my 20s. And so when I started to get into typography classes, I started to get interested in calligraphy. So I went to plenty of different calligraphy workshops. And after hours, I studied and I practiced calligraphy. That brought me into lettering as well. So I went to a different workshops with lettering, and I took classes with Jessica Hish, Gemma O'Brien, and Martina Flor. And also I got into sign painting, which I was pretty obsessed with, which honestly is the hardest technique in my opinion. I also got into painting my own lettering murals, and all of that experience and all of that exploration of different typography techniques brought me into exploring and developing my own style in lettering. And everything was supported by plenty of lectures and design conferences, which I went to. So I went to Barcelona, I went to Typo Berlin for a few times, I went to Reykjavik, I went to Belarus, you name it. And so, as you can see, I just expanded my skills after hours beyond my branding work. And it obviously means that if you have more skills as a designer, you can just do more and you are aware of more. So it's very hard to describe who I am as a creator, as a designer, because I'm a designer, art director, illustrator. So anytime if we have a branding project, we actually recently had a branding project at Collins where I was able to develop an illustration style. We had, I don't know, if we have a word mark to design at Collins as well, or in any of my commissions, I'm able to do it by my own. But when you become a professional, you get to outsource a lot because it's simple. There's no time for that for you as a designer, and it's worth to know who you talk, what you talk about, and what you work with, and how to talk with a designer who you collaborate with. So coming back to the poster which I designed for the competition, that was actually my first professional experience in branding. So the award for winning that competition was to design the whole branding for the whole festival. And that brought me into 6 years of collaborating with the organizers of the festival. And from that festival, they brought me into a film festival, which they also organized, and which I was an art director of for 5 years. So I got to design their 5 editions, and each of them was different. And so what's funny is that was my first branding experience, and it happened in real life. So if I made any mistake, it was printed out and put on a wall in the festival, or screened on in the theater. And so I got to know how it works in reality. And so that was also the first time when I got to work with a design system. So lots of applications in these two festivals were produced by an exterior designers. So the designers came from the sponsors of festival, so they designed the applications by themselves, and I had no control of it. So I had to make a clever system to just be proof for their own interpretations of my design. So that was the first design project, the first student project, which actually ended up of being realized and of being produced in real life. And another one was actually my first typeface, which I designed, which was inspired by the artwork of my grandfather. So my grandfather was a sculpture artist, and he specialized in monuments and in medals. And I never got to know him, to meet him, because he died before I was born, a year before I was born, actually. And so I did my own research, and I think our task of our type classes was to design a font basing on a historic lettering. So I did my own research in my family archives, and I designed a typeface just inspired by my grandfather's work. And so I got recognized by that. So it ended up in MoMA Warsaw as a part of exhibition, and I represented Poland in a design week in Iceland, in Reykjavik. Another student project was another typeface. It was actually my final project, my master's project, and it was a script typeface inspired by old neon signs, which were very common back in communistic Poland again. And so they were created by artists, and I love their expressive gesture and their script and handmade quality, limited by a neon sign. So it has that factory feel somehow. So I got inspired by the neon signs. I worked on that project for 2 years. I developed a typeface, which it was my final project. And after publishing the project on Behance, I got invited by the Type Designers Foundry to release the font together with them. And out of a sudden, I became a part of a team of superstars designers as Lita Sobierajski, as Karen Sain, as Antoni Buril. And so I showed you those three projects because I truly believe that there's a recipe for a good design. So if you have an idea and you have a good execution, a high quality execution, that you always get a good piece of a design. So think about it as an house. So if you want to build a house and you have an idea, so let's say your idea is a foundation of a house, and you have a great idea, a great concept, but you never get to execute it because, I don't know, you like to brag about it, you are too lazy to do it, you just leave it as it is. Nobody can see your vision. If you have an idea, but execution is poor, nobody pays attention to it. If you have a decent execution, but there is no concept behind it, it fails. And to be honest, I see it very often in any design competitions, in application for jobs, that there's a plenty of pretty and nice design, but there's absolutely no idea behind them. And so me, it's always it's kill. I just judged a design competition recently, and we had, I think, 50 submissions in typography category, and I think from 50 there's only 3 which actually had an idea behind the typeface, and the rest of them is just it's just exploring a form, a pure form, and nothing more. So the successful design is when you have a great foundation and a great execution. So another very important part of exploring and your own style and working on your own projects is to publish them. So you want to share it with, you just have to share it with the world, because it doesn't exist if you don't. And so one of my projects which I did, and that was, you may be familiar with that, it's called 36 Days of Type, and it's an open call project on Instagram, which happens on Instagram. And the idea is that for 36 days, you design one letter per day, and you just you just have 24 hours per each and you have to publish it. So for me, I think it happened back in 2018. That was my playground to experiment. I worked at the design studio back in Warsaw for, I think, almost 4 years already, and I was tired of all of the limitations of being an employee designer, and also of the briefs, and also just the branding work. So I just thought, okay, that's the field where I can just do whatever I want to do. I'm gonna use a limited color palette. I'm gonna always use black background and just explore and try to break all of the rules of typography. And I got recognized for that, and I got the TTC award for that, which brought attention of Karan Sain, who was working with It's Nice That and Dropbox on a project, and he invited me to do a collaborative poster with him. And you can see like a whole case study of that project on It's Nice That page. And so, thanks to that, it also brought attention of Google Doodle, who invited me to design their one piece for them for International Women's Day for them. Another one. When I was leaving Pentagram, I just designed like a goodbye card for them, and my idea was just just to send that to everybody on the office email, and that's it. And I published it on in my portfolio, and that brought attention of Bon Appetit, who invited me to design the cover of their magazine Hellfish, and also a few spreads inside of the magazine. So anything which I create with excitement and curiosity propels me, so my work and my audience can sense that. And self-initiated and solo projects, they gave me all of my jobs. So one of the examples of projects like that was a branding project, which I designed when I was still back in Warsaw, and I worked at the studio, and that was the only time when I was actually free to lead the project, and I didn't have any leadership above me, and I was just able to do whatever I wanted to do. So that was a branding design for a fashion designer for Vasina, for her first and personal fashion label. So I designed the whole branding, all of the applications like bags, like tags, labels, and also I got to design a pattern for her pieces of clothing. The other one was a branding which I designed actually for friends. So my friends 6 years ago, they started a pop-up vegan ramen shop back in Warsaw, and they asked me to design their logo and for a banner for a pop-up. And they didn't have any money, and I I think they offered me to a free ramen for my entire life at their store. And it started as literally a banner on their pop-up, and it expanded as a 6 years project, which I'm still working on. And now today they are working on their fourth location. And during that time, through collaborating with them, I gained their trust. So I'm honestly free to do whatever I want to do in their any location. And these three projects were actually the ones which I showed both at Pentagram and both at Collins, where I applied for jobs. And I think that I might show like a few more lettering projects for Collins, but basically that were the leading ones. So the first one is showing that I have skills in lettering and I have my own style. The second one shows that I'm able to design branding. And the third one shows that I'm able to merge both of them. So in that very complex way, I just wanted to share with you that you never know how a project will end up and what you'll gain by any of a commission. If it's, a logo for a bowl of ramen for your friends, or if it's a poster competition, or if it's, it's just your personal project, it can result in in getting a job in a design studio or getting a commission. So I always tried to use my every opportunity and every chance to use every project to explore, to learn something new, and to experiment. And so freelance and self-initiated projects gave me the freedom to experiment and gave me the freedom to explore my own voice. And being recognized for them gave me the confidence in my own skills and in my voice as well. So your own voice is your biggest value. And I've learned how to just follow my guts. And also your voice is something which is impossible to copy. And so there are attempts to, copy different styles, but if everything comes from the bottom of your heart, it's just impossible to steal that from you. So I don't want to underestimate the full-time position, talking about all of my personal and freelance work, because I think I found the balance in my career, and the full-time position has always given me the knowledge, the mentorship, the design ethics. I've learned so much from different design projects, from of different scale of of different fields, and I also get the support. And by putting my name next to a design studio name, I just gained a respect, and everything gave me the confidence. So one propels the other one. And as I told you, for me, I think I couldn't do one without the other one. And that's how I find my balance. So one example of a project which is it's an example of where the lettering and my personal experience meets the professional branding experience, and you may be familiar with that one. So that was a wonderful opportunity, and I had lots of fun working on the project, and it was a pure pleasure. I won't talk about the project today because I talked about it a year ago to a group of students. You can listen about that on Brand New. Um, yeah, so let's go to the discovery section. So as I showed you at the beginning, I did quite a journey. So I think I'm 29 today, and I'm turning 30 this year, and it's a scary year. But I think I moved for around 20 times in my life already, and it always has given me a wonderful experience of meeting different people, different backgrounds, different cultures. So back in Poland, I was quite well settled down, and I had great position. I had a great personal life, but I decided to change something, to experience something new, because I felt that was the only way um, to learn something new which I had no idea about. So I moved to New York, and then I ended up in Honolulu. So uh, I always wanted to learn for as long as possible, and even if it meant regressing in my career. So as I told you before, I was quite successful in Poland. So I did all of the steps of the career. So the school, the internship, personal project, which gave me the freelance commissions, that gave me the full-time position. I was already, a solo art director, and my next step would be to open my own studio, and that's a joke already, but of course, but I just thought that if I opened my own studio, I would do it till the rest of my life. And I wasn't ready to settle down. I wasn't ready to make that decision. So I decided to jump back a few steps and do an internship at Pentagram. And actually, uh, it it just worked as a trampoline. And so another the most important aspect of the design path and journey is fun. So everything beyond design grants me. So as you've seen, I traveled quite a bit in my life, and so I lived in a different countries, and different states. And I started in the Eastern European country, then I went to New York, which is the melting pot of the entire world, and I met so many different people. And now I live on a tropical island and I surf every day. And I have no idea what's gonna happen next. And that's what propels me in my life. And what's important, I'm also learning that now how to take breaks. So take breaks, but don't really. If you really want to be successful in your career, you always have to be step ahead. So as I told you, I didn't sleep much in my 20s, and that doesn't change. And so learn the rules and then break them. You have to know the rules first. And the most important, just have fun. And that's what I've been trying to do every day in my design career. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Zuzanna. Do you have time for a few Q&A?
I do, of course.
Fantastic. So anyone can just go ahead and unmute themselves when you have a question, and we'll take a few and we'll see where it goes from there.
One thing about having fun, Zuzanna is now a surfer in Honolulu.
Zuzanna, thanks for joining us today. Can you tell us what brought you to Hawaii?
Oh, so when during the pandemic, when the pandemic hit, we started to work remotely at Collins. And so after spending, I think, 5 months in Brooklyn, in a smart apartment, New York is not the best place to live actually in your apartment. It's all about the social life in the city. Uh, I remember I went to Rockaways to surf, and it took me 2 hours both ways to go to home and to the beach and back home. And then I remember sitting down on a bench by a subway, and I thought, why the hell I'm still in New York if I can work from anywhere? Why wouldn't be I on a tropical island surfing every day when it's hot and beautiful? So that's what I did.
Hi, Zuzanna. My name is Emily Pruitt, and I am currently getting my master's through the program. And just wanted to say thank you. And I remember when they released kind of the rebrand, and I remember looking at it with my roommate being like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And she actually commented in the chat that she wants to fill her house with all your art.
Hey.
I was just wondering, what inspires you? Kind of what your style is so unique, and it's really cool and modern and fun, and where do you draw that inspiration from to create things like that?
Well, thank you. It depends on the project, obviously. If it's a visual identity project, branding project, I always get back to the history of art and history of culture. And, I just try to source my inspiration, not from others people design, and not to base my inspiration on the current and temporary design, but always in the history, because that's what never ages actually. And in terms of my lettering projects, I think my biggest inspiration is actually street lettering, street typography, because at some point I've realized that, you know, all of the calligraphy is beautiful, but it's so repetitive. The lettering, you know, super well, cute, honed lettering is beautiful, but again, it's so common and repetitive. And I remember one, and type design, it actually, to be quite honest, it's at some point it started to bore me because it's so much work behind it. So I remember just walking on the street and looking at graffiti, and I thought, oh my God, there's so much beauty in this wacky street art, that, and it's also a part of typography, that's what inspires me the most.
Hi, Zuzanna.
Hi.
I'm the roommate, Bethany. And yes, I did say I want to fill your house with my art because I do. And I kind of laughed a little bit because I grew up in New York and I grew up going to the Rockaways every other weekend and not surfing because I'm terrible at it. But my question to you is in kind of like a similar mindset. How have you stayed? I don't know, like one of my biggest struggles is like being perfectionist and not having fun with my designs. And that's when I start kind of sliding down. So how do you keep kind of like that youthful mindset and push having fun to the forefront and keep it enjoyable for yourself?
I feel you on that. So yeah, at some point I also realized that my kit of tools will be always as simple tools as possible. So I never spent too much time on my, for let's say, design piece. So if I do a lettering, and whenever I've done any, like the most successful ones were the ones which I made literally in a few hours or in an hour. And I always know that if I have an idea, a vision, I sketch it on a piece of paper and transfer it to Illustrator immediately. I do it and I leave it. And I always leave it for a few days. I come back to it and I just, you know, just add a few elements and it's done. And it's always the most successful. So yeah, it's important to not to spend too much time and not to overthink, because you actually edit out all of the honesty and all of the energy from your idea.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for making time for us.
Hi, Zuzanna. How are you?
Hi, Zuzanna. I'm Nolani.
Oh, sorry. I just want to thank you for presenting the work. And I want to ask you something about the breaking the rules. Of course, that's going to make, have fun with it. Usually, it takes a lot of courage for you to do that, probably to break the rules, to make sure that you're going to achieve something that is going to make your product, your workout stand, because usually who stays inside the lines usually doesn't get that word across, and it's going to be safe. What do you do with the fear, and how much do you push after breaking the rules that keeps you going?
It obviously depends on the situation, right? So if it's a branding work in a studio, there are obviously limits. So if there's a limit for, let's say, a logo, it has to be legible, right? So I can push like not too far, but if it's my personal project, I obviously have no fear. And the project which taught me that was the 36 days of type, in which I had no limitations. And then after publishing that and after getting recognized, I realized, oh, so whenever I actually have fun and I actually do whatever I want to do, it works the best. So yeah, I have no fear.
Hi, Zuzanna. Oh, hi, Lauren. I'm gonna go. Yeah.
You go ahead.
Hi. Okay, cool. My name is Nolani. I'm an art director, or I'm in the art direction program in Atlanta, and I really related to you on the fact that you have so many interests, and how you just kind of explored and started learning a lot. So my question to you is, like, how do you showcase yourself, like, through your identity or your brand when you have so many interests to companies to companies or to, in an interview or something like that?
How do I introduce myself on interviews?
Yeah, introduce yourself or like showcase yourself, knowing that you have so many interests. Like what is your, like how do you appeal to them, knowing good and well you have a lot of interests?
So I think I've discovered what's the biggest skills and the biggest power. So I think that's just lettering and branding, and I always focus on those two fields. And my goal is to merge those two, as you've seen. So I don't show the work which I'm not that interested in to actually work in the future. So I never actually showed any packaging project or any wayfinding because I've done that already, but it's not my dream project for the future. So I think that's the most impossible, to focus on what you actually want to do.
Hi, I'm Loren, and I was wondering about how you get settled and like reconnect to your intuition and your creative juices once you've moved. I've also moved many times in my life, and every time it throws me through a little bit of a loop. So I was wondering like what you do to like ground yourself in a new area.
I think that actually that energy and that change is what brings me the excitement. So whenever I move, I start from exploring the culture, which I'm not familiar with yet. And, I always give myself a bit of time, and then I just sit by my desk and start to design.
Hi, I have another question if we still have time. So I love the Venn diagram that you created about good design, of saying, just with a good idea and proper high quality execution, that is good design. And it's almost so simple that it's extremely complex at the same time. And so I'm wondering, have you ever been in situations where you have a good idea and your only obstacle is the execution? And where that ever becomes an issue, how do you troubleshoot and kind of overcome if execution is the issue, but you have an idea worth executing?
So yeah, I think that's why I touched on so many different areas of design, that I make sure that I'm able to execute on many different fields. But if it's something which I'm, honestly not interested in doing, I recently started to learn how to outsource. So currently I am working on my own typeface, and I told you that the process of developing a typeface, it's extremely boring for me. But I had an idea and I really want to, throw it out to the world. So I actually started to collaborate with a type designer. So I drew in glyphs all of my characters, but then I passed it on to a type designer who's working on kerning, on just making sure that everything is working as a file, as a system.
Thank you.
Okay, hi Susanna. My name's Diana. I'm quarter one. I'm actually going for copywriting, but you do have this incredible understanding of art. I mean, it's been present in you since like you were little. For someone like myself, who, by the way, I'm 30 and is starting off now, I mean, what would you say, honestly, to keep it motivating and knowing that I don't have all that kind of experience?
What would I say if you are not inspired, you mean?
Just starting now in my life.
It's never too late, and I feel that it's the same as I said about the fear, right? Like, and honestly, throughout my life, I always followed a rule that it's better to regret that you did something if rather than you didn't. So that's why I took all of the steps and took all of the risks of even moving to the US, which was highly hard and harsh, and just starting to live in a different country, using a different language on a daily basis, and starting to work in a design studio, not using Polish, which I was used to, or even to go to a different continent without knowing each other, anybody. So I think you get to explore and experience so much more. Then it's just better to do it rather than don't.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vlada. I'm the first quarter of digital design, and I actually have a question about your plans, your future. You said that you want to open the studio, and where is it going to be? Like, where do you see it? In Poland, back in Poland, or in USA, or somewhere else?
I have absolutely no idea. And that's what exciting as well. I have no idea where I'm gonna be like in a year. And I'm quite sure that I'm not gonna come back to Poland anytime soon, but I don't know. I don't even know when I'm gonna open my own studio, but I'm not ready for that yet as well. Just like I wasn't ready 3 years ago.
Thank you. It's interesting because I'm also not from USA, I'm from Russia. Not from Inspo. But it's really interesting. It was a great lecture. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Zuzanna. Thanks so much. I really enjoyed that. And I'm just curious, like with all that you've done and you have your end of the story plotted out, but between now and then, like what are some things you're interested in? I see you're doing a lot of motion stuff. Are you interested in like filmic things or along that line? Like what are some of the future trends that you see, maybe if not for yourself, then out there? Maybe you don't care. Maybe you just kind of surf it. But yeah, what do you feel is coming up in your bones?
Yeah, I honestly don't care about trends, and I feel, as I said, I feel that the biggest power is in your own ability to express your own voice and your own point of view. So that's why, as it's the same. I have no idea where I'm gonna be at in a year, personally. So I have no clue where I'm gonna be at in my design practice in a year or tomorrow even. So I just stay open-minded, and I receive commissions and I just go for them and I experiment. So what's important for me is just to always stay inspired. So I always try to be active, like going to museums, just listening to podcasts, to lectures. And so for me, being in Hawaii, personally, I don't have that whole cultural part of New York here, which I enjoyed so much. So I'm just making sure that, I'm still on the top of it and I stay inspired.
Awesome. Thanks.
Hey, Zuzanna, kind of going off of that, I was wondering, I was just kind of curious how, since you've moved around a lot and lived in a lot of really amazing locations, how that's influenced your design and like if those environments kind of spark new things in you. I'm sure they do. I just was wondering if you could speak to that.
Yeah, they did a lot. I think I became a whole different person, a whole different designer after moving to New York, because I got to meet so many different designers from around the world, especially at Pentagram, because the studio there, it's like I think 80 designers working there, and everybody is from somewhere else. So just seeing that and seeing different backgrounds and a high quality work just motivated me, and it just changed my whole perspective. So yeah, moving out from Poland, which, you know, it's not too huge, after spending a few years of working there, I literally knew everybody in the field. So just going out from that small world and changing the environment gave me a lot of new motivation and influence and inspiration.
Wow, yeah, thank you. That helps a lot. And I feel like going to Hawaii, not going back, sorry, is another small area. So that's going to be an interesting change for sure.
Yeah, totally. I feel that any places like Hawaii, or I remember my first trip to Barcelona, somehow influences my color palette. I don't know how it works, but after going to Barcelona, I was just inspired by the vibrant graffiti, which is all around the city, and mural artwork, which is everywhere, all over the place. So yeah, I try to, you know, get something, a little something from everywhere I go.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Are we good here on questions? Anybody got another question they want to pop in before we?
I just want to say thank you. Sorry, Hank.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Right, that's what I want you to do.
I just wanted to say thank you, Zuzanna, because it's so inspiring to feel that you have so much faith and confidence in yourself, and that your journey doesn't have to be predetermined, because I think there's a lot of anxiety as an artist of what's next, you know? I have stopped and started over so many times. And to see someone like you who's made such beautiful work and who stopped and started over, I don't think you've ever stopped though. Anyway, it's very cool. So great work, and hope to meet you one day. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm happy to hear that.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask a quick question on where you get your inspo for color palettes. But also, thank you for the talk. This is really, I needed this inspiration this week, so thank you.
Of course. Where did I look for my inspiration for what?
Or color palettes. Sorry, for example, the 36 Days of Type, or.
Honestly, I have no idea. I have no answer for that. I feel that I'm always in a field of just vibrant colors, and the colors which I have used like in the last 9 years, they always shifted somehow. And I remember my friend who's a Buddhist, he explained to me that there's a theory behind the colors which you use, so you can actually explain in what place in your life you are by which colors you use. So I started with reds and blues, and now I think there's no artwork which I did where I didn't use any pink color actually. So that's you know, the main theme of all of my work.
Thank you.
Are we good here? Do we have some?
Can I ask one last question?
Yeah.
So basically, you do so many like different skills. So when you're transitioning from like work to work, is there something that like is hard to like do the click to start designing an interface from then working with type?
Yeah, it's, you know, a change of a workplace is always challenging, but I feel that I've gained so much experience already and confidence that it's just a different environment, but graphic design, the rules are always the same, even if it's on another continent. So yeah, I mean, interface design. I also got to work on web design at Collins as well, but luckily we don't spend too much time on it because again, we outsource that. But if we work on a branding project, we always, get to design a homepage. So having that experience helps to work with an interface for the future developers or the future people who follow up on that project. So it's always good to have all of the knowledge and all of the skills in your pocket, so anytime it's needed you actually have it and you know what you talk about.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Zuzanna, thank you so much for coming today and being a part of this and sharing with everybody. And I think everybody will go away inspired big time. And there'll be a lot of bright colors and balloon type coming out and all kind of neat little graphs because of your inspiration today. And so much, we really do appreciate it. And just, it kind of goes without saying, we really appreciate the work you put in on the M.AD brand and helping with that huge project. And we thank you. We got one of the best identities on the planet, and thanks to you. And so
it was my pleasure, and thank you for the invitation today. It was a pleasure to share my story.
Zuzanna, a couple people have asked me if they could get in touch with you. Can you tell them how they could best get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think the best way is to reach out to me on my email, which you can find on my website, or Instagram, like whatever works. If I don't respond to you immediately, I'm sorry for that. I don't mean that, but I'm overwhelmed sometimes by new emails. I have tons of them, but I will answer.
Yeah, so take her up on that. You know, sharing is a big part of it. I think it's amazing. Michael Beirut and Brian Collins have both had an opportunity now to work with Zuzanna, and so kudos and thank you again for coming. And everybody, thank you all for coming. And we can't wait to see you next week in the broadcast. So bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.